So I was looking through my book, There is Another Way, Energy Medicine for Pets with Cancer, which of course works for everybody else. I thought what I would do today is I would randomly open a page and talk about what was in there. This is my tome. my Anyway, a lot of love went into this book. A lot of really thinking a lot about what works and what doesn't work with healing, especially for cancer. And I just sort of like did a brain dump and then turned it into a book of all the things that you kind of need to know. It's about pets, but it's also everything in here also applies to people. So if you don't have it, that dude. Okay, good. So I just turned to page 6. I'm going to read what it says, and then I'll talk about it. It's from the chapter, Is This You? So it's sort of like seeing if you're suited for using energy medicine for your pet with cancer. And one of the maybe I'll just start over there because otherwise it wouldn't work. I'll just start from the beginning of chapter 2. Is this you? I don't want to give my pet chemo. The vet has offered chemo as something to do, which might make me feel less helpless because it might extend my pet's life, but it has not given me hope for any good outcome. The chemo or radiation seems brutal. I know my pet will not live forever, and I care about the quality of their life. Or I can't afford the chemo or radiation, but I want to do something. I would never treat my own cancer with poison. Why would I give it to my pet? Or my vet told me that the cancer is so advanced that chemo is likely to not work, will be expensive, and will make my pet uncomfortable. Between visits to the vet and nursing a sick animal, it's not a good choice. I'm not willing to sit and watch this young animal die without doing anything. I need to find another way. So this is the other way. All right. And then I'm just going to keep reading. Do any of these statements sound like you? My method doesn't work magically. It doesn't defy natural laws. It's comforting, perhaps life-extending, but not curative for an older animal or one that's had chemo or radiation often. Since I wrote this book, one addendum is that one of my most dramatic cures came from somebody who's had chemo, so I no longer am quite so wary of chemo or radiation than I was when I wrote this. If the animal is currently receiving chemo, it may stop the chemo from working, and the chemo may stop my method from working. I don't recommend doing them at the same time. Since then, I've revised my opinion a little bit. This whole chemo issue is important, so I put some emphasis on it. It's not that I hate veterinarians or Western medicine. I don't. It's not that I'm opposed to chemo or radiation for cancer. There's a time and place for everything. It's not that I haven't tried to help people and animals who've had chemo and radiation. I have. It's because the tumors in an animal that have had the deep poisons don't respond well. A hot tumor in a young animal will dramatically cool down during a healing session. If they've had chemo, their tumor doesn't cool down, or it's a wimpy cool down, not a robust cool breeze. In chapter 6, I explain how to tell if it's working. Unfortunately, older animals and animals that have had chemo or radiation therapy often don't respond much. Their tumors energetically feel like a dead battery. Spontaneous remission happens frequently in cancer. They happen in people and animals who've had full chemo and radiation. So it's not that I don't think it's possible. This has led me to treat many animals and people who have had chemo and radiation. And when I wrote this book, I hadn't had a cure that way, but now I have. It's been a worthwhile palliative care. They've had less pain, better digestion, and seemed more cheerful. I have some ideas of how to get around this, but it requires a group of people, like us, healers, experienced in the method. This book is my attempt to start training people so that such groups can form. Okay, so since I wrote this book, I formed this group, and we're part of, hopefully, that solution. So thank you for being here. All right, and just to be thorough, my current position on chemo is that since there are so many spontaneous remissions from people who've had full chemo and radiation, it's clearly not a it's not an either or. It doesn't just like knock you out of the ballpark of being able to receive energy medicine. It just means that this is a natural healing process. It's not a miraculous one, even though it seems miraculous when it suddenly turns and starts healing. It's sort of like source has to work through biochemistry and cells and things like that. And it's just easier when there's more life force in a young animal, and it's easier when your immune system isn't also being poisoned, to have the natural healing forces activate. In no way, shape, or form does it mean that you shouldn't do it if that's what makes sense. All right. So I know a lot of you here have had chemo or radiation or both. A lot of you have not, and you're all very, very welcome. All right, and let's get you better. All right, so let's see. Yeah. It's not that they don't, Angela says, such good news that chemo and radiation don't stop your healing methods from working. It's just that what I tell people now, like I have a 33-year-old young man, I'm going to see him for the first time a little later, and he's had full chemo, and he might be young. I have to see how he responds, and if nothing's going on, then we don't continue, because it's not like, do you believe in it? That's clear. It's like if your body responds. And in my book, I talk about ways to tell if it's responding or not. And I've done it enough to know. All right. Good morning, Melinda. You're up early. Yeah. All right, good. So, yeah, I think on my YouTube channel, there's something, Eva, E-W-A. She talks about her rather dramatic cure. She'd had full chemo. And she just did straight Bengston Method. She did none of my squirrely stuff. So that's nice. And she got better like in 2 treatments or something. So yeah, and I've thought a lot about how that happened and why that happened and how to help other people have that result. I think about it a lot. All right, let's do the healing.